Can the path of intimacy show us where we're not being honest with ourselves? Join us for this conversation about Gene Key 59 and Sabian Symbols Virgo 1 through 6. Welcome to the Free to Be Free portal. I'm Julia Ananda, and I'm here with mystic and astrologer Margaret Miller. Margaret, I love how Richard Rudd describes intimacy as saying, "Into me I see."
It's awesome. That's a beautiful place to start. Thank you for bringing us there. So yeah, the gene key this week is gene key 59, the shadow of dishonesty, the gift of intimacy, and the Siddhi of transparency. And as we'll find out, this is like, I mean, obviously this is a very big topic and yet another gene key that's like at the core of, a lot of our um, difficulties in the world and in society and so forth, because it deals with relationship. It's yet another gene key in the ring, the codon ring of union. We've been in this codon ring for several weeks now with gene key 4, gene key 7, and gene key 29, and now gene key 59. And so the ring of union. And so it's talking about us recognizing our unity. And we have to move through each of those shadow states, to be able to come into that awareness of unity. And so coming back to what you said, into me, I see intimacy. So it really is, even though it has to do with our intimate relationships and our one-on-one relationships with the other, it means something different, like many of these words do in the gene keys. It has a deeper and broader meaning. And in order for us to sort of get there, I want to start with the shadow of dishonesty. And and so basically this dishonesty, on one level, it's genetic and it's sort of built into us, and it's not necessarily intentional, right? But then on another level, it becomes intentional, and it's our own sort of avoidance of and not wanting to look into ourselves that causes this dishonesty. So in this, when we talk about it sort of on the genetic level, we're saying that within us there is a tendency to ignore the signals from someone else that say we have a chemical reaction between two people, and that chemical reaction is love. Love at first sight, or whatever. It's that two people fall in love, then they are immediately, we've all heard the story, right? We are immediately blinded to anything negative about that person. There isn't anything that's wrong that we see. There's no flaws in that person, and that lasts for a period of time, and they see the same in us, and we don't have to worry about hiding any of our flaws because they couldn't see them if they wanted to, right? We're genetically predisposed to not see those things during that phase, right? And so it's sort of like this. And then when that period is over, that honeymoon period is over, then we start to notice. Then we start to notice things that, and we start to maybe even worry about them noticing things about us. Oh, what if they don't like me anymore? What if, so our fears start to come to the surface. So this is the first level of that dishonesty, right? Is that we really can't even see clearly, the truth of that person, the good, bad, and ugly, the beautiful and the ugly and the wonderful and the terrible about any of us and all of us, right? And so So that's sort of the funny thing, right, about our our intimate relationships, is that it has that period where there's just sort of this kind of built-in fantasy or built-in dishonesty. But really, we can't do much about that except for acknowledge it and know that it's that it that's part of it and it happens, right? And so then the dishonesty comes because we are a lot of times unwilling to go inward and to look inside and to look at what's really there, and to because we know, instinctually we know, that there's pain in there and there's suffering in there and there's trauma in there and there's parts of ourselves that we really don't want anyone to see, including ourselves. And so it's easiest if we don't actually look at it ourselves to pretend like it's not there. If we don't go there, then we have, plausible deniability. We don't have to admit it to ourselves or to anyone else, right? And so that dishonesty then leads us to live really in fear, because we're afraid of being found out by ourselves. We're afraid of what we might find of ourselves, or we're afraid of what other people might find, that they might find out, where we have that imposter syndrome, or where we have, just whatever we're unsure of, and not, not self-assured, or not the places where we have low self-esteem, right? Where we're afraid of being found out. Okay. You can see how there's no possibility for true intimacy. And especially if we use Richard Rudd's, that saying, "Into me I see," right? There's no possibility for that if we don't go in, right? Because that is intimacy, is going inside of ourselves, finding out the truth. And usually what we find is that, yes, there is pain there and there is suffering there, but that it it transmutes, and it changes and it transforms into something beautiful, if we're able to be with it, if we're able to recognize it and be honest with ourselves about it. And there's this energy also of gentleness and love, self-love, right? That's the intimacy with the self, like being able to be the nurturing one for ourselves, and say, you know what, it's okay. It's okay that you have these parts of you that you maybe have been ashamed of, or felt, like they weren't good enough or whatever. Acknowledging them, right? Then you have this intimacy with yourself. You have this relationship with yourself that says, you know what, I can see the parts of me that I didn't like, or that need some work, or that I haven't wanted to accept. And if I am able to accept them, then and love myself, then I am in a healthy place to be able to share of myself with someone else, to be intimate with someone else, because I know myself well enough that I'm not afraid to open myself up to someone else. Okay. So that intimacy then can blossom with another person who's also willing to do that for themselves. Right? It takes, it doesn't take both people to do that in a relationship, because one person will, if they do that, if they're doing that, they're going to draw that out of the other person, because they've created a space that's safe. If it's safe enough for themselves, for them to be, if it's safe enough for me to be with myself, then it's safe enough for you to be with me as well, and to be yourself with me, right? And so the intimacy then is really then becomes this is another idea that Richard Rudd speaks about really beautifully, is that it becomes shared awareness. Like true intimacy will happen when two people share the same awareness. Like that's how, because when we are that clean with ourselves, and I almost want to bring the word transparency in here, when we're that transparent with ourselves, right, when we're able to see into ourselves that deeply, and be okay with ourselves and be loving to ourselves, then, and the other person is doing that same thing, then the space has been cleared, and there really isn't any space between us. There's just this shared energy and this shared awareness, and that's where intimacy ultimately will be heading. and and so I get, for some reason it's I'm wanting to bring in the 55th gene key, which is, if you're familiar with the gene keys, this is like the gene key that describes the new human and the new earth, and so forth, this sort of awareness that so many of our teachers and leaders in the world, in this spiritual world anyway, and philosophical world, are talking about, right? The new earth, the new humans, the new way of being on this earth has to do with this 55th gene key, which is the programming partner here. So that's another reason I'm bringing it in. So that is the shadow of victimization, the gift of freedom, and the city of freedom. And it's the only one that has the same word for the gift and the city, freedom. So once we come out of victimization, once we recognize our own responsibility for our everything that happens to us, that we are active participants in everything that is happening, and there really is no victim here. It's a challenging concept, but once that happens in one individual, they are free. They are free to be themselves. Okay. And there you can see it, how the shadow of victimization is fueled by dishonesty, right? And the shadow of dishonesty is fueled by victimization. We when we are being dishonest with ourselves, we are able to blame someone else, to shame someone else, or to blame and shame ourselves, right? But still, ultimately we're the victims of our own self, of our own dishonesty, right? And so then as we move into the gift frequency, the gift of freedom, once we recognize, oh, I am the one doing these things to myself, there's nobody out there really doing this to me, it's me, then we get to know ourselves, because there's no one else. We're not focusing our attention on blaming someone else for what's happening in our lives, which we can spend a whole lot of energy and a whole lot of time doing, right? And so then that intimacy with ourselves leads to further freedom, and being able to be free with ourselves, and being able to ultimately, as that gift frequency, as we get better and better at intimacy, at seeing deeply into ourselves and listening deeply to ourselves and listening deeply to the other, because intimacy has a lot more to do. It's not it's, certainly there is the sexual aspect and the sensual aspect of intimacy when we're talking about, people in intimate relationships, but it's more about how much of ourselves are we able to share, are we able to are we willing and able to share. And as we move towards that city of transparency, it really is this energy of of deep clarity with ourselves, right? Becoming transparent, like being able to allow ourselves to be seen all the way through. But there's nothing to hide here, right? There's what you see is what you get, right? There's nothing hidden in here anymore, at least as far as I know, right? That would be when you were that transparent. But it also has to do with that transparency is about coming into that state of union, right? Because the cities are all about, the 64 faces of love. The city of transparency really is about unity, right? It's about that coming into union and recognizing ultimately that there is no other. So someone who is demonstrating the city of transparency, they oftentimes at least in the people that and the avatars that have demonstrated this particular city, they would refer to themselves and to everyone and everything as beloved, as the beloved or my beloved, right? Themselves and everyone else, and so you can kind of feel the energy of that transparency is also bringing in the energy of the unseen, the energy of the creative force, the energy of creator, right? It is it is the the life force that permeates everything, right? That transparency. And so I think I'm going to leave it there for now and go into the Sabian symbols. Virgo 1, in a portrait, a man's best traits are idealized. And we talked about this a little bit before in the last gene key as well. But here we can see bringing it into the idea of dishonesty, uh, intimacy, and transparency. It's like in a portrait, we can sort of fake it. We can bring out the best aspects, right? The best parts of that person and sort of hide the flaws or hide the things that are less attractive or less desirable, right? But as a symbol, as a Sabian symbol, it is saying that we can take whatever is there, that's the capacity to picture ourselves in whatever situation we're in at our highest, at our best, operating at our best. And that requires us doing that inner work that we were talking about, going in and looking at the parts of ourselves that we're hiding from or that we're not willing to share, and to start to develop that intimacy and with ourselves, and to begin to express ourselves or express the better traits in ourselves with self-assurance, with self-confidence. So it's quite a good symbol for this gene key. So Virgo 2, Sabian symbol here is a large white cross stands on top of a hill. Okay. And so this Sabian symbol talks about the wisdom and compassion which can only come through the experience of suffering and isolation. It's what happens to us when we have had the experience of suffering, when we've had the experience of being isolated, being, you know, in desperation, in very, very difficult circumstances. Then we can see the truth in ourselves. We can see the truth in others. We can then, obviously have compassion for other people and their suffering. and and it just is really a beautiful symbol of coming into that ability to, because that's intimacy, right? Being able to have compassion and understanding and wisdom for the suffering of the world, for the suffering of ourselves and each other. And then, and of course the cross symbolizing, Jesus on the cross also is, the ultimate sort of transparency, right? Being completely transparent to life and death, right? So Virgo 3, two guardian angels bring protection to a family in the wilderness. I love this Sabian symbol. This is talking about the invisible help and protection that comes to us in times of crisis, usually, but that's always there, right? The invisible energies that are there helping us. And really that can only be felt and recognized when we have come to a place of of openness, right? We really can't, we don't feel the angelic realm unless we have come to that place of self-honesty and self-love and self-kindness, at least at some level, right? Because we wouldn't even think to ask for help unless we knew that we needed it. Or that, and that these invisible forces are available to us. So to me, it's a symbol of transparency, right? It's the the invisible forces that pervade our lives, that are helping us, that are assisting us. Then Virgo 4, Black children and white children play together happily. So this energy of seeing, being able to see the differences in each other, and being able to be with that, with honesty and with joy and with playfulness and childlike wonder, you know, like the children notice that their skins are different colors, and that maybe they come from different backgrounds, but it doesn't stop them from being able to play together, right? that that kind of prejudice and thing, those kinds of things are learned, and they can happen early in childhood, unfortunately, but they aren't innate. Like, we have this ability to see differences and to recognize the beauty of diversity from the time we're little children, right? And have wonder and awe and curiosity and playfulness. And so I think it really is also showing us, that dishonesty that happens inside of us, right, can lead to very, very difficult prejudices. It can lead to very difficult belief systems that aren't helpful, and that are incredibly dishonest, and eliminate the possibility for intimacy, right, in any kind of relationship. So another beautiful symbol. Virgo 5, a man becoming aware of nature spirits and normally unseen spiritual agencies. Okay, so it's yet another energy of the transparency, or the things that are unseen coming to light, being able to open to new levels of consciousness. And I didn't know this is the direction that I was going to go with this, because there's so many different directions we could go dishonesty, intimacy, and transparency. But what keeps wanting to happen is that that this opening of our consciousness into higher levels of awareness, higher levels of consciousness only happens when we go inside and we're honest with ourselves and we clear out the old and we make the space for intimacy with ourselves, for our own selves to love ourselves and then be able to give that energy out to the rest of the world, right? And so when we do that, then we become aware, right? That's when we become aware that there are these nature spirits, there are these unseen agencies that are at work in our lives and in the world in general. Yeah. Yeah, they're not behind a veil anymore. They're not hidden anymore. And the last symbol, Virgo 6, a merry-go-round. And so the merry-go-round is this awareness that happens that life is cyclical, right? That we're moving, where that life goes, it moves up and down, like the horses on the merry-go-round, and it moves around in circles. It moves around in cycles, and that at some point we have to recognize, like like this work that we've been talking about, with the dishonesty and intimacy, that that in order to get off of the merry-go-round, in order to get to not keep doing the same cycle over and over again, right? You have to be honest with yourself so that those changes can occur, and that we have to get off of the sort of the merry-go-round of our emotions and our ego fueling the same cycle over and over again. And then we can, like actually move it into a spiral instead of a circle that just keeps repeating itself.
So if we notice that we're going around and around in the same patterns, we can choose. We can choose to use our intention and our effort to try to get off that merry-go-round and shift. But also, sometimes really, really difficult things happen in life. And that sort of knocks us off the merry-go-round and also cracks us open to the invisible forces, the intimacy of spirit all around us, the helping nature of life all around us.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's exactly what I was pointing towards, and that what has been being pointed out to me as I've been talking about this is that energy, like that it's this intimacy with life. Yeah. And you're right, that sometimes it does take difficult things. Um, and when we recognize and this is part of the shadow of victimization, coming out of that shadow of victimization into freedom, we recognize that everything in life, everything that happens to us in this life is happening for us, not to us, but for us. And so then it doesn't necessarily make those difficult things any easier. We still have to move through them, but it does make it so that there is this optimism, that there is an outcome that that we can maybe not see right now, but we can look forward to, that there is something beautiful that will come out of this, right? And that there are these invisible forces that are helping us. Yeah. I like this idea of being intimate with life.
I think a lot of people in our audience probably have gone through very difficult things. I think a lot of times that does put people on the path of being seekers for wisdom and their highest self and intimacy with life.
Yeah, I do too. Right. And so this is, you know, I think making it friendly, making our inward journey friendly for ourselves. Like it's not to get rid of things as much as it is to become aware, right? And and it's not as much about what we have to change and what we have to, dismantle as it is what we have to accept about ourselves and to what we have to like make the space for and to nurture and parent and you know be the best parent of ourselves that we can be and yeah, be
Yeah,
gentle and
I think that awareness allows us understanding of others. And so then we move from the intimacy with ourself to the ability to have that intimacy with others as well.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Margaret, thank you so much for this. Wow, what an incredible wisdom. Thank you very, very much. Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you,
Yeah.
Julia.
And to our audience, please let us know how this has touched you. It's really beautiful, deep wisdom. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.